I didn't mean to go that deep. It started out innocently enough. A few weeks ago, I found myself bored at 2 a.m. scrolling through the same repetitive sites, looking for something new. A friend had mentioned the dark web once, half-jokingly, like it was some kind of taboo adventure. You'll see some messed up stuff, he warned, but in a casual tone that didn't seem to carry much weight. He didn't know how curious I was about things I shouldn't be. The first time I logged in, I was scared. I'm not ashamed to admit it. A ton of random sites, all encrypted. Everything was behind layers of protection. I stumbled across forums, chat rooms, and markets, most of which I had no clue how to navigate. But there was one link I couldn't ignore. It had a clean interface compared to the rest of the clutter. The title was simple: The Auction. Now, I know what you're thinking. How stupid could I be to even click it? But curiosity got the best of me. The site itself was stark, black background, white text. It was like a minimalistic design, which made me think it had some kind of legitimacy. The auction was live, and the item was listed in the top corner. But when I looked closer, my heart dropped. The listing was strange. The description didn't make sense at first. Bid for your choice, what you desire most. It's all for the highest bidder. At first, I thought it was some weird scam, or maybe it was one of those deep web prank sites. But the longer I stayed, the more unsettling it became. I refreshed the page, and another item was listed. This one had a photo attached, of a person I didn't recognize tied to a chair. The auction item was labeled simply, Subject B, 5 p.m. Don't miss your chance. The bidding numbers started going up, and it wasn't just a handful of dollars. The amount quickly skyrocketed. One bid was placed for $10,000, then another for $50,000. My stomach turned. Who was bidding on this person and why? What the hell was going on here? I shouldn't have stayed, I know, but I was hooked. Just like that, I was sucked in. I kept watching, scrolling, and even though I had no idea what was happening, I couldn't turn away. And then it happened. The next listing came up. It wasn't a person, but something else entirely. Something far worse. The new listing was unlike anything I had ever seen before. At first glance, I thought it was a mistake, or maybe some kind of messed up joke. It was a video marked simply as real or fake. Your decision. I clicked it. What I saw, I can't forget. The video was grainy, like something filmed on an old camcorder. A dark room, dimly lit, with the sound of breathing that was heavy and labored. At first, I couldn't tell what was going on. It looked like a person was moving, squirming on the floor, but their face was blurred out. The image kept flickering, like the camera was struggling to stay in focus. Then, the camera jerked, and a loud crash echoed through the audio. The figure, still blurry, but unmistakably human, let out a desperate scream. I froze. My heart was pounding in my chest. Whoever was behind this wasn't playing games. The camera zoomed in, and what I saw next made my blood run cold. In the corner of the room on a table was a human skull. Not an ordinary skull, but one that had clearly been altered, scratched, carved with strange symbols. Around it were random items. Knives, rope, wires, and other things I didn't recognize. The video cut to another angle. Now the person on the floor was visible. Their body was contorted unnaturally, clearly struggling to break free from something. An unseen force, perhaps, or something more horrifying. The sound of a door creaking open echoed from the background, and the figure's eyes widened in terror. That's when I realized the auction wasn't just for things. It wasn't just about selling objects or stolen goods. It was for control over real lives. Before I could process what I was seeing, the auction timer on the screen began counting down, each second increasing my anxiety. The item description updated. Subject C. 3 minutes remaining. Bid now. The video shifted again, and there, in the frame, was the figure from the beginning. Someone had dragged them into the light. I could finally see their face. It was a man, young, no older than 30, with shaggy brown hair. His eyes were wide in sheer terror. I felt something twist in my gut. This was real. This wasn't just some sick fiction. The auction wasn't about objects at all. It was about human lives, or worse, human suffering. I didn't know what to do. The site had a chat feature, and dozens of messages popped up, all bidding for this man. The numbers were climbing at an alarming rate. I knew then I had gone too far. I had no business being here. But before I could close the tab, something strange happened. A message appeared in my inbox from an unknown user. "Don't leave. We're watching you." I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't move. My heart was pounding so hard in my chest I thought it might burst. I quickly looked around my room, as if someone might be watching me from the dark corners. But the room was empty, silent, except for the sound of my rapid breathing. The message just sat there on my screen, mocking me. "Don't leave. We're watching you." I had no idea what to do. Part of me wanted to shut my computer down, pull the plug, and pretend this never happened. But another part of me, call it stupid curiosity or whatever dark impulse was pushing me forward, kept me glued to the screen. I tried to close the chat, but the window wouldn't close. My cursor moved sluggishly, like I was being forced to stay. Then, another message popped up. "You're already part of the game. You bid, you stay." My throat tightened. I hadn't placed any bids. I hadn't done anything other than watch, but the feeling of being trapped was undeniable. My fingers moved of their own accord, typing the question. "What do you want from me?" A few seconds passed before the response appeared. "You know what we want. Bids are just the beginning." The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. Bids? I hadn't bid on anything. What was this game? What did it mean? Before I could type another response, the video I had watched earlier reappeared on my screen. The grainy, twisted footage of the man, still in the room, still struggling, now had something different. There was a new message on the screen. It said, "Viewer, join the game." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I hadn't even realized it, but my eyes had been glued to the screen the whole time. The camera zoomed in on the man's face again. His eyes were wide, pleading, almost as if he could see me through the screen. And then, with a sudden, brutal clarity, I noticed something I hadn't before. In the background of the room, barely visible in the dim light, there was a figure. A person standing silently, watching. No, not just watching. It was staring right at the camera. Right at me. The figure moved forward slowly, and with each step, the screen began to glitch, lines of static distorting the image. I felt a sudden, overwhelming sensation of being watched. Like the figure in the video was no longer on a screen but right behind me. I whipped around, heart hammering in my chest, but there was nothing, just the empty room. But when I looked back at the screen, the message had changed. "Welcome to the next phase." I tried to log out. I clicked everything I could, but nothing responded. I was stuck, and then the camera on the screen flickered again. The man's mouth opened wide, but the sound that came through wasn't his voice. It was a low, growling whisper, barely audible. "You're not leaving." The timer on the auction page had stopped. No new bids, no countdown, and then the screen went black. For a moment, everything was still. The screen went black, but my heart didn't stop racing. I sat frozen in front of my computer, staring at the empty monitor. The weight of silence in my room felt suffocating. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my fingers tingling with adrenaline. I thought maybe, just maybe, the whole thing had been some sick prank. Maybe the website was designed to mess with people's heads, to draw them in and leave them terrified. Maybe it was over, and I could breathe again. But then, without warning, a new message popped up on the screen. It was short and to the point. "Get out." I froze. I hadn't typed anything. The message came through on its own, like it had been sent by someone or something else. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt that same creeping sense of being watched again. I quickly pulled my chair back, instinctively glancing over my shoulder. The room was still empty. No one was there. I looked back at the screen. The words hadn't changed. "Get out." I quickly moved the cursor to close the browser, but when I tried, the tab wouldn't close. The screen flickered again, and the video I had been watching earlier popped up. This time, the footage was different. The room was darker, colder. The man, Subject C, I remembered him, was no longer struggling. He was sitting upright now, his face drained of color, eyes wide and lifeless. His lips moved, but there was no sound. Then the camera zoomed in on something that made my stomach churn. A blood-stained knife was laying on the floor in front of him. His hands were free, but his eyes were locked on the screen, as if he could sense I was there, as if he knew I was watching him. I couldn't pull myself away. A new line of text appeared under the video, "Your turn." I wasn't sure what that meant, but before I could process it, the video cut to a live feed. It wasn't of the auction anymore. It wasn't even of Subject C. It was a shot of my own street, taken from a dark corner. The camera was blurry, but it was unmistakably my neighborhood. Panic surged through me. How the hell did they know where I lived? I quickly scrambled to pull the blinds shut, but the moment I stood up, the screen flickered again. This time, a new message appeared. It was chilling. "We know you." My mind raced. How was this happening? My hands were shaking. I tried to close the browser again, but it was like I had no control over my computer anymore. The screen wouldn't respond. It was like the dark web was alive, watching, manipulating my every move. Suddenly, the sound came back, the static growl from earlier. But this time, it was louder, like someone was whispering directly into my ear. "You wanted to see it. Now it's your turn." I turned around, my heart pounding in my throat, but there was still no one there. Just the eerie silence of my room. The screen in front of me displayed nothing but a black void. And then, I saw it. A flash of movement. Just behind me. I whirled around, my heart slamming against my chest. My breath caught in my throat. The room was still empty. The shadows clung to the corners like they always did. Nothing was out of place. But that feeling, the one that you can't shake, the one that tells you someone is right behind you, even though you're alone, was crawling up my spine. I checked the hallway. Nothing. I stood there for a moment, listening, straining to hear anything that didn't belong. The only sound was the rapid beat of my own pulse in my ears. I stepped back toward the desk, staring at the screen. The video was still playing, but the image had changed again. Now, there was nothing but static. And then, through the static, a single figure appeared in the center of the screen. It was me. The camera zoomed in on my face, distorted and glitching, just like the other videos. But this time, I wasn't on the screen in front of me. I was in the reflection, watching my own terrified expression as it appeared in the flickering pixels. The reflection was wrong, though. My eyes were wide, not out of fear, but something darker. Something inhuman. I felt my stomach twist. I wasn't looking at myself anymore. I was looking at something else. Something that looked like me but wasn't. "Get out. It's already too late." The text on the screen blinked. "You've seen too much." I couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. I just stared at the screen, paralyzed. How had they done this? How had they hacked into my own computer, my own webcam, my own life? I felt a rush of cold air against the back of my neck. I turned, faster this time, heart racing. The figure in my doorway wasn't human. It wasn't like a person standing in the dark. It was more like a shadow, a distortion in the air. It moved unnaturally, jerking from one position to the next like it was glitching in and out of existence. The edges of it seemed to bleed into the walls, twisting and pulsing, like something was trying to push through. For the briefest moment, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me, a side effect of too much fear, too much horror. But then it moved closer. It didn't have a face. It didn't have a body in any way I could understand. It was just wrong. I couldn't comprehend what I was looking at, and yet I couldn't look away. My feet were glued to the floor as it took another step, and then another. Closer. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with an unbearable sense of dread. The figure raised one of its arms, if you could even call it an arm, and pointed straight at me. My heart skipped a beat. The only thing I could do was stare, frozen in place. And then I heard it. A voice. It wasn't coming from the figure, but from somewhere deep within my own head. It whispered, no, commanded, something I couldn't understand. The words were distorted, layered over each other, like a dozen voices speaking at once. "You are ours now." Couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. I couldn't move. The figure stepped forward. Every inch of its movement was agony. I could feel its presence in my bones. The space around it seemed to bend, like reality itself was folding in on me. And then it touched me. I screamed, finally out of instinct, but it was like the scream didn't come from me. It was swallowed by the darkness, the figure's unnatural presence pressing in on all sides. The world around me began to twist, and in the midst of the chaos, one final message appeared on the screen. You're part of the game, forever. The world was no longer my own. I tried to scream again, but the sound choked itself in my throat. The figure, whatever it was, loomed closer, its presence filling the room. It didn't move in the way people do. It was like it was both everywhere and nowhere at once, as if the very air was its shape. The closer it got, the colder the room became, the darkness wrapping itself tighter around me. My hand trembled, reaching for the desk, desperate for something to hold on to. The screen flickered once more, and then the words came again. You're part of the game, forever. I didn't understand what that meant. What game? This wasn't a game. I wasn't part of anything. This couldn't be happening. But my body refused to listen to my mind. I was frozen, unable to escape. My heart thudded louder and louder, threatening to burst from my chest. The figure was closer now, so close that I could feel a strange pressure in the air, like something was pushing against my skin. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond. It felt as if the air had thickened, as if the room had turned into a trap. And then, with a terrifying slowness, it spoke. Its voice wasn't like any human voice I'd ever heard. It was layered, fractured, as if it was the echo of 1,000 souls murmuring all at once. You shouldn't have looked. I wanted to look away, to close my eyes, to escape, but I couldn't. The words slithered into my brain, burrowing deep inside, and suddenly the room felt too small. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, pressing harder and harder, suffocating me. The figure's shape seemed to stretch unnaturally, contorting, bending in ways that couldn't be real. It wasn't even a human form anymore. It was just wrong. Then, like a twisted illusion, its face appeared. At first, I didn't recognize it. It was a patchwork of features. Eyes that weren't eyes, mouths that didn't belong. Its face was stitched together with impossible fragments, like a nightmare made flesh. But as it drew closer, I saw something else, a reflection of me. My own face, my own terror, twisted and fragmented on the monster's disjointed features. That's when it hit me. The face wasn't a reflection. It was my soul. My very essence had been pulled into that thing. I collapsed to the ground, my legs giving out beneath me, but the figure wasn't finished. It reached down with its cold, inhuman hand and touched my forehead. The touch was ice, freezing my entire body. The room spun, my vision blurred. I felt like I was being ripped from myself, like I was being stretched, torn apart. Something cold and invasive was crawling through my skin, through my mind. The screen flickered again, showing nothing but a mirror image of my face. Twisted, deformed, trapped within the thing. You're in the game now. I gasped for air, but it wasn't just air I was gasping for. It was something much worse. My body fought to break free, to move, but my hands remained glued to the floor. I could feel myself slipping away. My own voice, my own identity, felt so far gone, like it was being absorbed into the dark. But in that moment, one last thought crossed my mind. The website, the auction, the bids. It had all been a trap, a lure, and I wasn't just a spectator anymore. I was part of it. The figure leaned down and whispered again, its voice slithering into my mind. Now you'll never leave. The world around me began to darken, the room growing colder and colder until there was nothing left but the black void. I couldn't fight it anymore. The game was over. I had lost. I had become part of the horror. The darkness enveloped me entirely. Couldn't move, couldn't speak. It felt like the very fabric of my being was unraveling, stretching into a place that was beyond comprehension. I wasn't just trapped in the room anymore. I wasn't even in my body. I was somewhere else, somewhere that didn't exist in the way that anything should. The whispers grew louder. They weren't in my ears anymore. They were inside my skull, crawling through my thoughts. I could feel them seeping into every corner of my mind, corrupting every memory, every thought, every fear. The auction, the bids, it had all been a setup. A cruel game where the players were never meant to win, only to become part of the collection. And then I saw it. In the endless black, there was a single distant light. It flickered like a candle flame, weak and uncertain. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was an escape, some chance to claw my way back into the real world. But as I moved toward it, I realized it wasn't a light at all. It was another screen, another auction. I could see the words on it, clear as day. New item, subject 7584. Lost soul, bidder required. I realized with a cold shock what had happened. I wasn't free. I wasn't a player, a victim anymore. I was the item. My body, my soul, everything about me was just another piece to be bid on by whoever wanted it. And then the screen flashed with a number, an obscene, astronomical sum. But that wasn't what chilled me. What chilled me was the name attached to the bid. It was a name I recognized. It was my name. The whispers erupted, louder now,